computer. Okay, we should be good to go.
Yay. All right.
All right, well, awesome. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to our Teal Table Talk Tuesday, which again, still quite a mouthful. But today, so excited. First, I'm Casey. I'm the confidential advocate with our Relationship Violence and Sexual Assault Prevention Program. And I'm so excited to be joined by Jennifer today with Crime Victim Services.
Hello.
Hello. It's Crime Victims' Rights Week, and so we're just really excited to be able to partner. We work with Crime Victim Services, or CVS for short. We work with them all the time, so I am just really thankful to have you here today, Jennifer. So thank you. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yes. Casey, thank you so much for having me and including me in this awesome kind of round table, I guess you will. I'm Jennifer Sterling. I'm the Victim Services Coordinator in the UTA Police Department, and I am a licensed clinical social worker. So though I work in the police department and I do work with officers on the daily and, assist in reporting and support and all that kind of stuff, I am not a police officer. I am a social worker. So I like to say that I think I'm a little less intimidating than our friends in blue sometimes. And I'm here to be able to, provide information and services if someone's interested in reporting, but they're really not sure what that would look like. I'm happy to provide them the information to help them know really what all is involved before taking the leap, what their options are, and coordinate with whatever department that is. If something were to occur on campus, then I would actually respond on scene with our officers to provide that immediate crisis intervention. And I think I'm getting ahead of ourselves, so I apologize.
No, you're good. I think it's just awesome. I'm just such a huge advocate for crime victims. It's so awesome that we have y'all, you currently right now, right? Just holding support.
Just me at the moment.
Yes. And I just think it's incredible for students. And what I'll say is when students reach out to me and they're interested in making, talking about exploring all their options, when we're exploring that criminal process, it is such an asset to be able to call you as someone who can help someone just walk through what that looks like and walk through them throughout the process if that's what they end up deciding they want to do.
Yeah, we know that there's a lot of reasons why someone may or may not want to make a report or why that can be scary and intimidating. And so we really like to be able to provide that additional support to make that happen and coordinate, like I said, with whatever department it is to make it make the most sense, make it most effective, as well as, even if someone decides they don't want to make a police report, we can still, direct you to services. Ultimately, we really want to focus on the person that we're working with. It's called a victim-centered approach. And you're the expert on your life. And so really figuring out what's going to be best for you and for you to be able to make that decision, have the best, as much information as possible to really be able to do that.
Yeah, and that's something that I really appreciate about having crime victim services. And I know that I echo that in this office here. So does Jessica, of how do we make sure when we're working with a student that we're giving them as much power over the experience and control as possible of whatever path that they decide that they want to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so Jennifer, tell us a little bit about, so how did you get into your role? What made you, as a social worker, I feel like there's so many different paths you can take, and kind of what led you to UTA's police department and crime services.
And I guess just educational background. If anybody is not familiar with social work, to be a licensed criminal, that's not correct. I'm sorry. A licensed clinical social worker. I am not a criminal social worker. Oh, sorry.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't think it means anything. um, you have to have your master's in social work, and you have to be a licensed master of social work before you start your clinical internship process, which is like most counseling type things, a 3,000 hour internship with supervision, and then you sit for another board examination. So just kind of giving that background. A licensed clinical social worker is not required for this role in police departments, and you'll see throughout different police departments, the person in this position looks very different, and victim services programs all look very different. However, I am a licensed social worker, and of course, just I have a little bit of a bias toward, having people from mental health professional backgrounds kind of in these types of roles, just because of the level of training that we get as part of our education, to be able to effectively advocate and everything. But yes, as a social worker, you can really go a bajillion different ways in your career. And that was actually something that was really appealing to me when I chose social work. So, and actually, just kind of backstory, my mom is an LPC, and she said, if I had to do it all over again, I would become a social worker, because you have a lot more variety and, option in what you can do. And so that is actually why I looked at social work, was because of that.
That makes sense. But that it's just wild because for me, when I was going back to school for my master's, I remember I asked someone who was an LMFT supervisor, which stands for Licensed Marriage Family Therapist for anyone watching. I remember I asked them, I was trying to consider, I was like, should I do social work, LPC, licensed professional counselor, or LMFT? Like, what should I do?
Yeah.
No, I want to help people. I know I want to do like something clinically, counseling. And she was like, you should go for social work because you can do so much with it. And
Yeah, it's really versatile.
yeah, like you can just do so many things. And I was like, okay, well, I think I'm gonna go for my master's in counseling. Like, I don't know. I just totally didn't heed any advice. But I'm doing what I really enjoy, obviously. But
Yeah.
I do think in retrospect, I still just didn't wrap my mind around at that time, like
what social work really fully entails. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't realize like you can get the LCSW, which literally is clinical, and so
Equivalent. Yeah.
yeah, and so when I look back, I'm like, oh, that's why she said that. I don't know why I just chose to not use those words, but
Yeah.
so work opened so many doors for sure.
Yeah. So, how I actually got into it, I've always had interest, and knowing that the criminal justice system is really confusing, it really appealed to me, and how difficult it is when someone's already experiencing trauma to try to figure out another entire confusing system. And also, having seen what typically happens is that either people just feel like they don't know what to do, and they're really confused and overwhelmed. And so they just kind of disengage, and either don't start the process or don't stay in the process. Was something that, really, I don't know, it kind of bothered me, because, how are we supposed to adequately use our justice system if people aren't able to stay in the process? And again, I want to say, not because anybody along the way isn't doing their job, it's just that there's so many things that police officers have to do, that detectives have to do, and they certainly take their time and try to many times, like, say, this is what this is going on, or these are the steps of what is going on. But we know the way that trauma affects the brain, it really can have an effect on ability to remember details or, remember what step processes are, or a lot of different things. And so I really try to take the approach of explaining it in a very comprehensive way, and making sure that victims know it's really normal to maybe not remember all the details, and you don't need to be nervous about asking me questions and calling back. Even if you know for sure that we've talked about it, you're like, I know we talked about this, just I can't remember. And okay, fine, let's talk about it again. So that was really interesting to me. So in my undergrad internship, actually, I started my victim services career. Then I worked at the Regional Victim Crisis Center in that area.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I was an intern there, and worked there and started my crisis calls, and going out to SANES and all of that kind of stuff. And in that area, the Regional Victim Crisis Center was, yes, the area rape crisis, but it was also, if there was a homicide or anything like that, we were the victim services for that entire region to provide any additional support, and counseling and just all of that kind of stuff. And I knew that I was interested in it. And then as I was doing it, I just knew I had found my passion, and just what I really, really loved doing. And I know that can sound kind of crazy to some people. I often get like, well, isn't your job just really sad? Or like, how do you manage to do that every day? And yeah, I certainly hear awful, terrible things every day. But it's really rewarding in the way that I know, yes, I am hearing awful, terrible things, but I am helping people come out the other side of it too, regardless of what that looks like. And it's really a privilege to allow someone to let you in when they're in that place of vulnerability, to allow you to assist them. And I don't take that lightly either.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that covered what you had asked, kind of how I got into it and why. So it started very early on. And then kind of my other main area of interest is foster care and adoption. Mm-hmm. And realistically, if you look at that, those kids are also victims of crime. That's why they come into the foster care system. So in my graduate internship, I actually, me and one other person started the CASA program in that region. There wasn't one before. So I got a lot of really early experience writing policies and procedures and, building a program, just starting very early on. So yeah, so we launched that program and everything. And from there, when I moved to Tarrant County, I went to work at the Tarrant County CASA program. And which is one of the largest programs in the state, and was a supervisor and trainer and all kinds of things there. So,
well, and I kind of thinking through like your transitions and your career, and then your experience too, just doing policy and procedure development and just program building.
Right.
What has it been like for you? Because Crime Victim Services is still relatively newer.
We're a little over 3 years old now.
Yeah.
And yes, I guess I will include, if for anyone that may not be familiar, I was hired to build and develop and make this program, which I also have done, and started with an advocate who was a fabulous support, and I could not have, gotten things off the ground without her, and I very much miss her. But what was the question?
Just like kind of what has it been like for you building and developing Crime Victim Services from the beginning till
yeah.
Really?
So it's really exciting to see something that you've envisioned come to fruition, and to see all of the ways that it really and truly can be extremely beneficial and helpful to the intended people. So primarily students, of course, on campus, but we also actually serve students, staff, and faculty. And if there's a visitor on campus that becomes a victim while they're here on campus, we are also going to serve them and work with them. And so it really kind of covers a lot of gap areas that traditional university advocacy, which is wonderful and awesome, people in like Casey's role, do and very, very needed, but it does, you know, a lot of times it's less common, but then if there is some sort of situation where, you know, a faculty or staff member, you know, needs something, there's not necessarily really a place to direct them. And so I also really, I think that that's a really big asset. But it's been really cool to see all of it come together and really see in the university setting and police setting. So it's different than either any type of community agency or a typical police agency. It's really the convergence of those two models. And it's not something that exists a lot. And so there was just a lot of really kind of exploratory new stuff. And of course, along with that comes, you know, challenges, and there's not a lot of literature to reference or people to talk to about. But that's, I like a good challenge. And part of that, I was recruited by the FBI to participate in a program this past year to mentor another university police department in higher, you know, they had a coordinator in building a victim services unit within the police department within a university. So, and that was really cool too.
That's just so cool. Well, and I think it's so cool that like, and I think that's one of the things that like crime victim services having the program, I think sometimes even for me, like this is what I have known, right? This is the first higher ed institution I've worked at. And so I came on after you were already here, existed, everything, and I just find it interesting because I think it's such an asset, and I really like it's hard for me to imagine like that this is not a common
the norm.
Right? Like it's
a far cry from the norm. I think we're finally getting to a place where most universities have some sort of advocate position, something, in the last, several years. But yeah, it's kind of a more specialized approach, if you will. And again, I will reiterate, programs and approaches, and I mean, even for a university advocate, that stuff, it still looks very different everywhere, all over the place.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, I'm so thankful that we have you and that we have. Yes, it's just I really.
Thank you. I think we have a great team. It's we've gotten it down to a smooth, a really good, like well-oiled machine, being able to work collaboratively and together and manage Title IX and BIT and all that kind of stuff. So
for sure. Well, and so kind of thinking about your services, thinking about crime victim services. I know that obviously too you work with victims of many different crimes. What is it for you? Because with it being Sexual Assault Awareness Month, what is it for you that kind of keeps you in the movement to ending sexual violence? Like, what kind of keeps you going? What motivates you to just keep going? I know that you've mentioned already it's a passion.
Right.
How do you sustain?
Right. Yes, because it is and can be exhausting work, and certainly a field that we do see a high rate of burnout. So specifically work related, I really try to focus on the small victories and really and truly sometimes those small victories are the big victories. But focused with the victim on helping them to feel like they've gotten a sense of justice, or, like that they're getting to a place of being able to start to deal with it, or, something along those lines. And certainly that is not work that we can do for anyone, but if we can help provide the tools and information and connection to other resources to help them do that, that's extremely fulfilling to me. Because just knowing, it's easy for somebody to say, well, that's just one person, but I know on the other side, for that one person, how much of a difference it can make in their overall well-being. So, and outside of work, kind of on a like self-care kind of note, I do, it's a little bit tough because I'm on call 24/7, because as I mentioned, I do respond to any, crisis situations. But I try to have kind of have some healthy boundaries with work. So yes, I may have to respond to a call, but aside from that, maybe not being connected to what's going on. When I am done with work, I try to be done with work and try to be fully engaged with my family. And I have a sweet, cute little baby. So,
so cute, so precious, and like objectively,
yes,
just wild.
Yeah.
But no, that's awesome, and I completely agree with like the boundaries thing of just how much that helps sustain of if you can leave work. And I know it's so different for you because you still are on call.
Yeah.
Like you still have it in the back of your mind, even just in general. But
Yeah. And I will say over time, I've certainly gotten better. Just for anybody who's interested in the profession and the field, once you get used to being on call and that that's just your state of living, it's not the same level of, I think, initial heightened awareness that you have. So you're like, I'm on call, so I need to da 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 da. And then it just kind of becomes your normal, and you're like, okay, if that comes up, I'll handle it,
Yeah.
So it's, sure. Yeah. But
I remember the first time I volunteered on a hotline, and they would transfer it to your cell phone. Like it would still be dialing the hotline, but it would go to yours. And I remember just the idea of being on call. Yeah. As a new person,
right,
doing the work. I remember I sat in my bathroom with my phone there the whole time, and papers all around me of like different things that I could say, just because I was so nervous. I was like, I'm gonna say the wrong thing. And it's really normal at first when you're on call.
It is. I remember the same thing when I was very beginning, when I was talking about for the Rape Crisis Center and being on call. And, you just feel like you don't sleep the same way because you're like, what if the phone rings, or, but you do get used to it.
Yep, you do. You do. And so kind of shifting gears here. So kind of just in your time here with Crime Victim Services, what's something that you think of like just a proud moment for you?
So I don't want to speak too specifically to any type of actual direct situations or cases, but generally,
of course,
any time that there has been a situation where there's lots of different types of victories, I guess, but I will focus on anytime there's been a situation where maybe somebody, a student, has disclosed some sort of situation to, it may be faculty, staff, whomever, it may be counseling, and then they've agreed, that person has said, oh, we do have a resource on campus if you want to talk to this person to get some additional information. And they've been connected to me that way. And I've been able to talk to them and explain the process, and then, of course, still fully based on what is best for them and their decision, guide them through the reporting process, and had some really good, important outcomes from that. I think that those are huge victories, to be able to demystify and make it a little less scary, so that somebody can ultimately do what they want to, but just has been maybe too nervous, rightfully so, to be able to do that.
And for like for a student who would potentially be watching this, when someone's considering, and I feel like I kind of am going to know your answer a little bit, but I was like, if someone's considering reporting, not reporting to the police, what's something that you would maybe want them to know when they're considering that decision?
Just on a very kind of general level, you can always make a police report, and you can always decide at any point that you do not want to be involved in the process anymore, potentially, if you feel that it's getting too overwhelming. But I guess kind of even more basic than that, I would love if you're comfortable to reach out to me, to be able to really actually walk you through exactly what that looks like, because I really like to help people understand these may be some of the questions that you're going to be asked. This is why they're asking those questions. It might feel invasive or like they're trying to get too much into your business, but they have to ask certain questions to try to determine if what you're reporting meets the elements of the offense of the crime. And along those lines, the law does not always keep up with where, the world is. But it's also constantly evolving as well. But just because something may not meet the elements of the offense of the crime, does not mean that we don't believe you that something has happened and something that's not okay. And so just making sure that you have all that information. I like to be really direct with people in making sure they have reasonable expectations, realistic expectations of what to expect from the process and from the information.
Yeah, that's something I've always appreciated. I know, because I've worked with, you all, when I'm connecting students with you, you come to my office, it's like the three of us,
right,
physically distanced, if,
right. Currently, yes.
Yeah.
It hasn't always been the way we knew each other in the before times.
Right. Yeah. But I know that that's something that I've always really appreciated. I think sometimes when thinking of the criminal justice process, it is, when you think of justice in that way, you think, oh, like they're going to get convicted, or expectations can get in a narrow mindset really quickly of what that should look like. And I think you've always done such a great job of just being transparent with people. This is what the process looks like.
Thank you.
So that they can make the best decision for themselves.
Right. And I think for a lot of people, and of course, why else would you have any other frame of reference? That only frame of reference is maybe like Law and Order or some sort of TV show. And man, do I wish these cases were like over and done in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But our criminal justice system just does not work that quickly. And I mean, of course, but the whole process, there's always dramatization, there's pieces left out. I think twice ever that I can count in Law and Order SVU have they ever mentioned victim services ever, which was like the very first episode and one of the more recent episodes.
Really?
Yeah.
And they're on like season
like 13 or 14 or 20 or I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
So I guess my point to that is just saying, TV and drama, we focus on like the exciting parts of everything. And realistically speaking, yes, some of that stuff does happen, but also a lot of that stuff, there's things that would never happen that way in a police department. And there's, and there's other roles and people involved like victim services and things like that, that also don't get mentioned. But again, like I said before, victim services looks different everywhere, and not every police department has a uniquely specialized person that only does victim services. Every department is required to, by law, by Code of Criminal Procedure, to have an appointed person, but it might be somebody who wears a few different hats, so to speak. So that's not their only job.
Gotcha. And if, let's say, okay, I'm just saying, I'm kind of spitballing here.
Sure.
But let's say a student would be watching this and they know that maybe their friend has experienced something that they think maybe should be reported, or that they're like, oh, I want to support my friend. This is horrible that this happened to them. This needs to be reported. What like advice or maybe a tip would you give to someone trying to support somebody that discloses them?
So I think supporting somebody is also just supporting their decision and their right to make the choice that's best for them. If they're not wanting to report it to anyone, that's their decision. And I think that we need to be respectful of that, because if we force somebody into doing something, we're again taking the power and decision out of their hands, just like happened when they were a victim of an assault or any type of, like I work with any type of, victim. And we do not want to, again, kind of perpetrate that sort of behavior against the person. So I think it's really important to support them in what their decision is and provide them with the resources. So I always say at, tablings and stuff, when I'm handing out information about victim services, if you have a friend that says, something happened and you're not really sure what to do, and, they're not really sure what to do, you can say, call that victim services lady. She's, you don't have to remember my name, just call this lady and talk to her. As far as Title IX is concerned, I am confidential. So I do not have to make a report to Title IX if something is disclosed to me specifically about, whatever. So we can have that conversation. I can make sure that you have all of your options, that you fully understand it. You can ask all of your questions. And it's kind of a no-lose situation. There's no commitment. There's no requirement to continue to be involved. There's no, requirement to make a report or any of those things. And so it's really just, hey, maybe talk to this person and I'll go with you if you really want me to, kind of thing. And give them that encouragement and support and respect their choice and their right.
So in a nutshell, what I'm hearing you say is like, listen to what their needs are.
Yep.
Make sure that they're in control of whatever decision.
Yep.
And then reach out, talk to support, talk to you.
Yeah.
So someone can more fully explore and then decide whatever they want to.
Right. Yep. And it could be me, Casey, whoever's most comfortable, and then if at some point, if you're talking to Casey, we do this all the time. It becomes appropriate, like, oh, somebody wants more information about the, reporting whatever, she'll contact me. Just kind of helping make sure that they have the information for the resources. It's the best thing that you can do so that the people that do the work and know all the ins and outs of it can be the ones to give them the best kind of information about what it all looks like.
Yep. We work collaboratively all the time just to make sure that students, like, we're always making sure that there's no gaps and that we're making sure that if a student comes to me first, and that's just kind of how the way that process worked, and they come here first, it's like, well, if police, they're interested at all in police involvement, then one of the first things I'm going to do is contact Jennifer, because I know that that'll be an amazing resource. If for any reason they decide that that's what they want to go through, it's like, then they'll have Jennifer the whole way. So I really appreciate that we are able to tag team things together when
absolutely
the student. And of course, we're always asking the student, like, is it okay if I loop in this person? Because again, we're both confidential. So we're doing everything that we can when a student comes in our office to make sure that they know that they have the power to make their own decisions.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and so kind of, I think I'm trying to think if I have any other like burning questions, but I can't think of anything really. I think I'm gonna end with a self-care question because I think that's always so important. Um, so talked a little bit about like what you do to sustain. We did talk about that you are like hanging out with family and try to
Yeah.
separate from work. And so just in general, um, what do you think are the most important things for someone to do maybe in a helping profession to take care of themselves?
So that's really a really big
I
question.
know. I was like, here's a general question, and it's a huge one.
It's a huge one. I actually also do teach some kind of other trainings actually on this topic area. But I think it's important to kind of create a life and your surroundings that you don't feel the need to constantly escape from. And so what I mean by that is, self-care, yes, the bubble baths and face masks and everything, super awesome and important and things that are great to do sometimes, but it goes much deeper than that. It's making sure that you have the supports and things in place, and sometimes doing things that are really not fun to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, um, including going to the doctor and like making sure that you have laundry ready for the week and, all that kind of stuff. Because really and truly, how much more stressed out does it make you if you go to get dressed and you have to wear a uniform and your clothes aren't there?
Mhm.
So removing some of those kind of things if you can. Um, so I guess really that's kind of a complicated way to say trying to keep some form of balance overall. And practicing really good habits. And I'm in no way, shape, or form perfect, but I see my own therapist and check in and try to practice healthy eating and getting exercise and sunlight and all of those things that are just good for every living being. Um,
Mhm.
and yes, as we were talking about, really doing those things that fill you up too. So creating kind of space to be able to dedicate it to family and doing things that I enjoy and spending time with people that I love.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I love that, and I so agree. I mean, there's nothing worse than trying to get ready for work and you're like, I have no clean XYZ. It's like, no. And I remember at one point when I was, I think anyone who's been in this field for a while starts to at least have one self-care too at any conference that they go to, like
Right.
presentation. And I remember hearing about, like rethinking how like I'm thinking about even doing laundry or even I'm thinking about working out. It's like, and what was my mission behind it and rethinking like I'm doing this to take care of myself to prepare for this week, or I'm doing this to take care of my body versus I'm doing this to lose weight or something. It's like, no, I'm doing this just to take care of my body or because this is what gives me more energy. Like re-examining
Absolutely.
thinking of all those things really helped me realize like this is self-care.
It is. It is. It's a very important part. And it's, like I said, it's some of that not fun stuff. Going to the doctor, are all your levels in check and where they need to be? If not, addressing them. Because if you are in check and healthy, then you're more likely to feel better and do better,
Mm-hmm.
have better rest, all those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's really important.
Yeah.
And learning to say no to things when necessary.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. No is like a whole like we could have a
Whole other
whole other
conversation.
thing about setting your boundaries. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah. Well,
absolutely.
I really appreciate your time, Jennifer.
Thank you
I
so much for having
know
me.
Yeah, of course. It's so nice. And I know that it's Crime Victims' Rights Week, and so I know you've had stuff going on already this week and continuous.
Yeah. So each day this week, we are focusing on like a different topic. So yesterday we were focusing on child abuse, and unfortunately, Tarrant County is #3 in the state of Texas for highest number of confirmed cases of abuse and neglect, as well as direct abuse and neglect related child deaths. So that's really unfortunate, only behind Harris and Dallas County, which kind of unfortunately Dallas is right there. So it's like this whole area is pretty high. And today we were focusing on sexual assault and having this conversation and working with victims of sexual assault. Tomorrow we are focusing on human trafficking, which includes labor trafficking and sex trafficking. We're going to be doing coffee with a cop in the UC Starbucks from 11 to 12. So I will be with the community engagement officer, Officer Murray, and we will be focusing on kind of what rights victims of crime have. So I always say, people are really familiar with the fact that when a perpetrator is arrested, they have rights. And you see on TV that there are Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney, et cetera, et cetera. But, do you know any rights of victims? And most of the time people are like, oh, no. And they have their own entire Bill of Rights. So we're going to be focusing on talking about kind of what those are, and what's involved. And those are actually, formally in the Code of Criminal Procedure too. If anybody's interested in looking them up, but you don't have to do that. They're on our website. That's probably just click and there you go. On Thursday, we are going to be focusing on intimate partner violence, family violence, domestic violence. I will be doing kind of a Q&A, kind of open, informational, focused on that area, but with some of our residential communities on campus, focusing on some of the interesting aspects of living on campus and living with roommates and everything, and really kind of what that means also for the state of Texas. And on Friday, I'm sorry, I left something out. On Wednesday, after the coffee with the cop, there's the tabling that we're doing with you guys with RBS. I'm so sorry, my brain. And we're going to be doing the myth versus fact kind of game with some of the interns are going to be helping me with that, specifically looking at human trafficking and sexual assault. And then Thursday, the communities. And then Friday, we are focusing on robbery and assault and kind of basic like safety tips surrounding those things. And then also, for your, items, phones, things like that, do you know your serial numbers and everything, so that if you were to need to report them as stolen, that you could give all of the information. And we will have a tabling to kind of go over some of that stuff with cards to get your, write your information and safety and stuff. And that will be on Friday in the UC Mall from 11 to 1. Each day this week, you can check the UTA PD social media accounts, primarily Facebook, for kind of some more information, how you can be involved with something, way to help any one of those types of crime. And on Saturday, some links to some great self-care items. So, some yoga, mindfulness, some, I can't talk suddenly, some other things. And that will wrap up our Crime Victims' Rights Week.
Awesome. Yeah. Y'all have a lot going on for Crime Victims' Rights. We love it. It's so nice to see more like things going on campus, and like even just, I know yesterday, like seeing y'all tabling, and it's exciting.
Yes, I know. Who knew we would be super excited to just even see a few students.
But we are.
We absolutely are.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Jennifer. And if any students watching this, if y'all ever need any resources, anyone to talk to, I know Jennifer spoke to, like, we're both confidential. And so if y'all ever need a place to explore your different rights and options, just please reach out to us. We're here for you, and we will always tag in each other when
Appropriate.
granted
Yep,
permission and when it will benefit you. So we are here to work as a team for y'all. So,
absolutely.
and thank you, Jennifer, and we'll talk to you later. Have a
All
good
right. Thanks so much, Casey.
bye.
Bye.